Welcome back to week 2 of the Success Series. I just want to thank all of you for the really kind messages I've received, the heartfelt emails. They've just meant so much to me, and I'm passing on those messages to our guests that have let me interview them. And I really want to give thanks to them for spending the time, being open and transparent with us. I just appreciate that so much. And if you haven't subscribed, go to optimizesuccesscoaching.com and subscribe to these podcast series. It's just amazing. And we're sending out replays and we're having drawings each week. So sign up if you haven't. We have Ginger Z today as a guest with us. She is the chief meteorologist at ABC News. She reports the nation's weather on Good Morning America and across ABC News broadcast and digital platforms. Since joining ABC News, Z has covered almost every major weather event and dozens of historic storms. She is also from Michigan. Z's passion does not stop with storm chasing. Her love of adventure has taken her and her viewers across the world. She has gone para-hawking in Nepal, flown a drone into the fissure of a volcano in Iceland. She's hiked the largest cave in the world in Vietnam. She's paraglided from the Himalayas to the Andes. She's dove with sharks in the Bahamas, and she's rappelled 27 stories down the exterior facade of the Wit Hotel in Chicago. Plus skydiving, ice boat racing, and surfing live on GMA. I can't believe she made the time for us today. She has storm chased since college and has a genuine passion for the atmosphere and a dedication to getting young people interested in science. Z is the author of the New York Times bestseller Natural Disaster, I Cover Them, I Am One, and the young adult trilogy Chasing Helicity. Additionally, Z and her husband Ben Aaron starred in Renovation Realities, Ben and Ginger on DIY Network. Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time today. We were so excited to have a few minutes with you.
Happy to do it.
I know your time is limited, and I'll be quick with my questions.
Okay, no worries.
So you're from Michigan. Tell us how from Grand Rapids, Michigan, you end up on Good Morning America.
I ask myself that same question every single morning when I pull into Times Square. It is a very different world, but in the best way. So I think that coming to a city, and I actually, it was very rural where I grew up north of Grand Rapids. So even to see downtown Grand Rapids, I remember that being a big deal. And so to move to Chicago, 5-6 years into my career, after living in Flint, after doing a PBS station in Indiana, after being back in Grand Rapids, was already like, holy cow, I made it to the city. But to come to Manhattan and to work and live here, it's a dream.
Oh, well, did you work on building your brand, or was it just an opportunity that you saw and you applied? Like, how does one, that's a big leap.
But it was a lot of leaps. It was like a lot of leapfrogging. So I fell in love with weather growing up on Lake Michigan, seeing thunderstorms come across because it's just like storm chasing the plains. You can see that. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, I saw the movie Twister. And so the passion for meteorology that I'd had for the last 8 years suddenly made sense. And I suddenly had a face to it, the character that Helen Hunt played. I thought, that's the type of scientist I want to be. And so I went and there was a big derecho in 1998 all across West Michigan. And that kind of solidified that the storm was the interesting part to me. And so I found a college where you could study storm chasing and where you got credit for storm chasing. And that is exactly where I got my meteorology degree. I had no intention in getting into television at all. And then I had a professor who said, I really think you have a skill at communicating science. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm shy. I have all these things. And he said, just try it, do an internship. So I applied to about 90 internships as a freshman, and nobody wants a freshman intern. And then one place, this was the fortuitous moment, made a mistake, I think, and just took me on. It was Birmingham, Alabama, so it made no sense for a young woman who was in Northwest Indiana going to school for meteorology. And they said, called me up and said, y'all know the Birmingham area well? And I was like, well, Birmingham, Michigan, yeah, but not Birmingham, Alabama. But I moved down for the summer, and that is when my life changed. That's when I found a guy named James Spann who I did the internship with, and that internship changed how I saw what I would do with meteorology. So I still only studied meteorology. When I went back to school, I auditioned for a position at a PBS station for a meteorologist, and I got it. And so that's when I knew maybe there is something to this. And from PBS, I worked in radio, in classic rock radio in Grand Rapids. Then I moved to Flint. Then I moved back to Grand Rapids. Then I moved to Chicago. So it was like WYIN, WLAV, WEYI, WMAQ, WOOD, and then MSNBC before I even got to ABC. So it wasn't too quick. It was a lot of places before getting here.
It sounds like it. Well, and I love that you just followed your passion. Weather.
Yes, I certainly did. And that I always tell students and whoever else might want to do this, at the end of the day, there's, of course, at this level, there's some glamour and some things. But at the end of the day, you're really just doing news and weather. So if you don't like that in Flint, you're not going to like it here. Right. I still am sleeping in the van when we chase a hurricane. There's no sudden, entertainment value of what we do. So if you don't enjoy and have a passion for what it is, I think that it becomes very apparent very soon. And a lot of the sacrifices of working every holiday and working ridiculous hours starts to weigh on you. I've been lucky that I'm getting to do exactly what I've always loved. And then, having all of these cool things on the side.
Right. I love that too. So what we're trying to share today is maybe 5 or 10 things that you feel have really helped propel your career, your business, your brand to share with others. And I wondered if you could go through some of those today. Sure.
I think number one is saying to myself, I'm not good at everything, especially within my industry. Because I only studied meteorology, I had no communications education. I had no communications experience. So every place I work, I try to take an improv, an acting, or a voice class pretty regularly. And I think that has helped round me out as a performer, because even though I'm a scientist and I'm sharing science on TV, you have to pair that with a performance. So, when I was in Chicago, I took classes at Second City. Here I'm taking voice lessons in Times Square, where Broadway stars are taking them. And, that has helped me to find a voice and find the ability to do things I probably never would have been able to. So I guess in kind of a synopsis of that is do something that feels really uncomfortable to you, but is going to help you in whatever it is, you're doing. And that continued learning. I think that's the other thing, is realizing as good as I've become at my job, I have so much more to grow. I think that part early in my career, I would have gone from Flint, was my first real job. And when I went to Grand Rapids, I remember kind of walking in like, I know what I'm doing. And that's kind of a young or a youthful thing too. I would say I've gone backward in that I never know what I'm doing in the best way, and I'm open to all the possibilities. Another one would be, I have made a career out of saying yes, but I've had a struggle to learn no. And when no works. And so, my husband is an expert knower. I'd say we're the opposites, and he could probably say yes a little bit more because he sometimes shuts things out. But he sets such strict boundaries about what he knows he's good at, and it keeps him in a very great place. And it keeps him feeling in control. There's sometimes where I feel like I've said yes to so much, as so many of us do. And it does stretch your quality of who you are away from what it should be. So I think knowing that about yourself is something to work on as soon as you possibly can. Let's see what else for my brand. The other thing is, I think I am very into grassroots. I still do this. When I started in Flint, Michigan on my first full-time job, the station encouraged us to be part of community experiences like parades and emceeing charitable events and all of these things. And I took that as kind of a challenge to see how many I could do. And I found quickly that and school talks helped me to become kind of a name, in the community, because I was shaking hands and I was meeting people, and it was also for a great cause. None of this was paid. It was all on my own time, but I just never thought anything of it. And I kept growing that. And all the way through Chicago, I'd say people in Chicago got to know me from TV, yes, but I'd say even more from the community. And
Yeah.
so even though that had, some of those events had nothing to do with my regular job, people got to see me. They got to hear my story. I got to hear their story. We were able to connect person to person. And that's when they started following me and become fans of you and or your brand or whatever it is. And so I still do that now after the show every day. We have this really short amount of time where the audience, who are true diehard fans of Good Morning America, come and sit and watch a live show. And afterward, Robin and I usually try to stay and take pictures with all of them and try to have a connection or a chat with them, because we appreciate their time as much as we appreciate that they're watching, what we're trying to put all of our heart and soul into every day.
I love that. And I think it's important that you mentioned even big cities. There's a community there, right? Sometimes we think smaller cities for community, but I love that you mentioned the big city communities.
Yeah, and even big, we have millions of people that are watching, but each one is an individual. And I've spread out my brand. I do something called the GMA Moment, and that has become a reversal. Like, people watch me on TV. Now I want to watch them. So it's where they send me a cute video of their pet, or today it was a woman who does somersaults, and then her cat does a somersault right after her. It was really amazing, actually. So it's a little bit like kind of America's Funniest Home Videos feel, but it's kind of a payback for that. You listen to me blab about all the information, but let me share something that's going to make everybody smile that's coming from you. So it's a direct thing where I say, this is, now I'm forgetting her name, Kim, and her cat was Scooter. And so it means so much for them to hear that, to share that with their friends and family. They'll never forget it. And we'll never forget it, because, it's a part of our program now. So, and it makes for great TV. I mean, that's the thing I probably get the most response on every day, which is kind of funny.
Oh, that's
Here
cool.
I am doing,
the weather, and it's the GMA moment.
Yeah. I think the other thing is knowing too. So I guess if I kept going on tips for brand, I think knowing that your brand is so much bigger than you ever think it is. I think the whole way in broadcasting, once I decided to get into it, I always thought that the network was the top. And then I got here and I realized, whoa, no, this is just the beginning again. There's so many opportunities beyond this. And I started writing children's books to communicate science. And I started, working on my own personal books. And all of a sudden I became an author, which I never thought I was going to be. And then I was on the New York Times bestseller list, and it was like, what? So I think the labels that we give ourselves early, this is kind of in that yes vein. I gave myself label early that I wasn't a writer because I was very good at math and science. I had probably had one teacher tell me, maybe writing isn't your thing. Right. And I took that and ran, and I let that kind of rule. And then when I went to the publisher and I said, I'm pregnant with my first child, and I've always wanted to do a baby book for weather. It just kind of makes sense at this point in my life. I told them about the idea and the character I thought, and they said, that's not really a baby book. That sounds like a tween book, and I think you should write a trilogy. And I was like, what? No, I can't write. And they said, well, if you can't, we'll get you some help, but why don't you just go try, see what you have. And so I wrote a couple pages or chapters. I can't remember what it was at first. And then I came back and they said, this is great. And I was like, what? Hold on, what? Right. So I think, that I think I believe in myself a lot often, but there's times where I've shut something out I didn't even realize I shut out. And now it's become a huge part of my life. That's been another way that I connect with so many people.
Oh, what great advice. And we do put those limitations on ourselves, and
more than anybody else.
Just one person says something and we believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these are great tips. Is there anything else you'd like to add with those?
No, I think the biggest thing that I work on right now every day is it's said everywhere, is to kind of live with gratitude. But I've been doing it from the beginning of my day. I get in the shower and I always make 2 little footprints on the shower wall for each of my sons. I should make a big one for my husband, but it's impossible. And I put their initials above it, so that they're kind of part of my intention of the day always. And then I put something that I'm grateful for on one wall and something that I have a goal or intention for on the other wall. And I think that sets my mind straight before I get to meditation, before I get to work. That has helped a lot in so many ways. And I've written an entire book and writing another one on my mental health struggles. And I think honesty with myself and then placing that gratitude at the beginning of the day has made a giant difference, and I hope it can for somebody else.
Yeah, it sounds like a really strong morning routine.
Yeah.
Just a couple quick questions. Have you had a mentor along the way that's helped you?
A mentor? Yeah, I would say James Spann, the guy I did that first internship with.
Yeah.
He's still just a weather king in the industry. I don't think I would have said yes to doing this had I not done the internship with him specifically, because he's such a wonderful man, a scientist. Talk about someone who's invested in community. This guy goes to schools every single day. And he doesn't need to do that. He's been around for 35 years. Everybody knows his first, middle, and last name, but to him, it is not a promotional activity. It truly is that connection to his community. So he taught me that. And I'd say he's still, if I have a big question, I could definitely still go to him.
Wow. I love that. And one last question. What's your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. Favorite is difficult. And what I read mostly is children's books right now because I've got the kids. But I would say what changed my life in the last, 5 years or whatever was my colleague's book. Dan Harris wrote a book called 10% Happier. Yeah. And it was just a very easy introduction to meditation. And so I don't know that it's my favorite book, even though I love Dan, but I would say it's the most integral book. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know we're out of time, but I'm honored that you took the time today to talk to another Michigan resident and share these steps with us that led you to where you are and continue to grow you and your path. And we appreciate all you do, and we enjoy watching you every morning on Good Morning America. So thanks, Ginger.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening today. And I know you pulled some things from this interview that you want to implement. And you need to implement. Do this for you. Everyone has ideas, but very few people implement. And even less than that, very few people finish. We love to be around the energy of people who implement and finish what they say they're going to. Subscribe if you haven't. Also, we'll be posting this on YouTube, most of the series, if you prefer to watch it on video. We'd love to have your feedback. Also, if there's something that you would like us to discuss on the podcast, email me at cindy@optimizesuccesscoaching.com. We are committed to optimizing your success.